even though it's anonymous.
Yeah, I'm not
Probably didn't. I don't know. This sounds right. You gonna tell me the answer after? What are these famous artists?
Oh, Toni Morrison.
Basically, the whole idea, the foundation of art therapy has to do with the idea that there is an unconscious, which Freud would have called the id, and that your unconscious is not readily accessible to you. It might be in your preconscious, or it might be really buried quite within. And conflicts that go on within your unconscious, things that you're not aware of that are going on, are affecting you in your day-to-day lives. And so Freud, one of his discoveries is that if you can make the unconscious conscious, that alleviates a lot of psychological suffering. So part of what art therapy does, or making art does, is it taps into the id, it taps into your unconscious and puts it out there. And then when you discuss it, it makes it even more conscious. So you might actually become a lot more in touch and aware of these conflicts that might be causing some sort of harm in your life. And because you're aware of them, then you can start doing something about it. You don't necessarily get stuck in the same traps and same routines as you always do, because now you're aware of it. When you're able to tap into your unconscious and start expressing yourself in a true form, maybe in a way that you didn't even realize that you were capable of expressing yourself. You didn't necessarily even know that you had these thoughts or feelings or whatever going on. And so you really tap into your unconscious when you make artwork. You're a lot less defended than if you're speaking out loud to somebody. But really the most important thing about analyzing artwork that's made by people in art therapy is that you, the art therapist, don't think that you know everything. You know, you don't think that, oh well, because this person put a moon on the left side of, you know, the drawing, that means that he hates his father or something. You know, like there are some art therapists who believe in that, but the way that I believe and the way that I was trained is that you really need to go back to the client, and you really need to have them explain what their symbolism is, because there are cultural differences. People are not all the same. Symbols are not all the same for everyone. So it's really important to not get stuck in the idea of like, oh, you know, as an art therapist, you look at the artwork and it's sort of like you're clairvoyant. You know, yes, you can certainly see clear markers of mental illness, but it's really the dialogue between you as the therapist and the client who drew the artwork in order to have a clear analysis of what went on during or in that drawing. And you also need multiple drawings. You can't just come to definite conclusions about somebody with just one singular drawing. One can sit down and do art and have release from it, right? I think it's a natural thing. We all kind of do that in one form or another. If you're not into you know, visual arts, and it could be dance, it could be writing, it could be drama, but I feel that, you know, it's natural to, as a person, to want to express yourself creatively.
Okay, my name is Louise Nair, and I worked on a book for many years called Burned, a Memoir, which was about an incident that happened when I was 4 years old. I grew up in New York City. My father was a doctor, and my mother was a nurse who worked for the American Journal of Nursing. And in 1954, our family took a month-long vacation to Cape Cod, Massachusetts. One night, Della, our babysitter, turned on the stove and there was no pilot light. So my mother and father assumed the propane tank must be empty. Anyway, they climbed down the ladder. My dad held the flashlight. There was no smell. My mother lit a match and the whole basement exploded. And my mother's face was horribly burned. My dad was burned as well. They managed to crawl out, get help, and they were taken to a local hospital. When my parents and my sister and I did all reunite, my mother was terribly disfigured and ended up with 37 operations on her face and hands, and my father was quite depressed. Now, for many years, I wrote poetry, and at times I tried to deal with the accident. But part of what was going on in the 50s was that people really didn't talk a lot about their feelings, about difficult things. And so it wasn't until I was 21 that I started to get panic attacks, and I wasn't quite sure where or why they came from. Some kind of anxiety. I related it to, I was leaving college, I had to look for a job, support myself for the first time. And then slowly those panic attacks went away. And then I kept writing, I wrote poetry, I always loved to write. It was really my solace. And then I turned 42, and that was the same age as my mother was when she was burned. And the panic attacks became very severe. And they were triggered by what is often called an anniversary reaction, when you reach the age at which some incident might have happened to a relative or to somebody close. And my children were then 6 and 4. So then the panic attacks were very severe.
What is the role of writing and art in your life?
Well, as I was saying earlier, writing's really been a solace. I think when I was very young, first of all, I was very fortunate to go to a progressive school in Greenwich Village where the arts were really supported. And I studied music, I took dance lessons, so I was fortunate to have that. And creative expression was just a part of my life. And I always felt that I wanted to be an artist of some sort, that I was happiest doing that. And for a while I wanted to be a musician and then a dancer. And then I chose writing because I thought I can do whatever I want with writing. With dance, I often had to follow steps, unless I'm a choreographer. With music, you had to read the notes, unless you were composing. And so I really love the freedom of writing, and I've always loved words. So the role of art in my life, it's been wonderful, and it's also been a place where I could pour my emotions out and feel that it was a safe place to do it and transform difficult feelings. I kept diaries and all kinds of things for years.
Just a follow-up question on that. What prompted you to write the book?
Well, in some ways I felt like I had no choice in writing the book. It was almost as if the book was writing me. I had written lots of poems and I wanted to tell a bigger story. And the book went through a lot of revisions. At first it was more just my story, and then I think as I matured and got older, I really wanted to hear my parents' story and my sister's story. And the book evolved. It was a story that was kept silent for so many years, and I just felt my body, the panic attacks, everything were just telling me I needed to get that story out. As difficult as it was very hard to write. In the middle of writing the book, and I was having panic attacks, which in some way were intensifying because I was reliving the story. I was going back, interviewing people and reliving it. And my mother, who was pretty practical and not so emotional, often said to me, "Why don't you just stop writing the book?" But I felt I really couldn't. So It's a mixed thing. It was cathartic in one way. It's very cathartic now because the book is out, the story's been told, and I feel I can move on. It's not as if I think you wake up one day and the trauma's gone. I don't think that ever, maybe it does for some people, but I don't think it ever totally happens, that it's gone. I think it gets transformed.
Any of your readers come up to you and told you about their experiences with the book? Like,
Yeah, some of them have. I've actually gotten emails from people who were burned, who really felt that I captured the experience. You know, I think it's a way of living in the present and of finding joy, of transforming things. And for people who have mental health problems, I think it's a way of giving them a confidence, as long as you're not judging the art. You know, that it's just self-expression, it's something they can feel proud about, something that they've done individually. And it can also be used at times for children or anybody to see where somebody's at, too. It can probably be very helpful for therapists. I think it's very important for anybody, people who have mental health problems or not, to create art. Why does one painting sell for $2 million and another one for $5,000? It's really what the public wants or doesn't want. I know that there is the term outsider art,
right.
you know, and if that is, quote, very trendy or people want it in their houses, maybe suddenly the price will go up or then the price will go down. Vincent van Gogh had a lot of mental health problems,
right.
and he was not really appreciated during his time. So, and he's one of the most famous artists in the world now. So it's really hard to say. I certainly have seen amazing art from people who were called mental health patients. And I think that's some of the problem too, the designation of people into stereotypes in terms of mental health, normal, all of that. Sometimes those lines are blurred in a lot of ways.